Bonjour, y'all. Nola Butterfly here. And we're going to do a little catching up on the weather events. A lot has been happening. And there's a huge storm in the Midwest brewing, and I can show you why. Human and environmental dangers posed by ongoing global tropospheric aerosolized particulates for weather modification. This is a PubMed Central National Library of Medicine article. I will link this below. Okay. The results. The rainwater element ratios show that the aerial particulate matter has essentially the same water leach characteristics as coal fly ash. The air filter dust element ratios occur in the same range of composition as coal fly ash, as do element ratios in fibrous mesh found on grass after snow melted. The fibrous mesh provides an inferred direct connection with the aerosolizing jet aircraft via coal fly ash association with the jet combustion environment. Conclusion. Strong evidence for the correctness of the hypothesis. Coal fly ash is likely the aerosolized particulate emplaced in the troposphere for geoengineering, weather modification, and or climate alteration purposes. All right, guys, this isn't even in question anymore. They get carbon credits for doing the coal fly ash in high altitude, doing the sulfur fuels. We were suspecting coal fly ash, amongst other things. And now we got a scholarly article on it. That's great. Now moving on to Doppler. So for me, weaponized weather has two parts. There's the aerosol program, and then there's the electromagnetic frequency element that goes in tandem with it, and that manages the weather, that steers the storms, and this is daily through the use of Doppler radar. Yes, the same radar that reads the weather actually steers and can create the weather. It can create high and low pressure areas, and this is what this channel's work has achieved improving. Years of documenting this. This is statistical impossibility, radar captures, hurricane after hurricane, going into Doppler radar, being steered by it, by the eye, and we cracked the code on a bunch of stuff. Let's see here. What do we got? Yesterday. Is this yesterday? April 15th. Yes. Okay. The National Weather Service is currently experiencing a widespread radar outage event with half of its radars are down. Wow. Half of the radars are down. Let's see if we can... Are the red ones down? What's going on here? Half of the radars are down. That is something. They recently moved our radar, which was down here up in Slidell, and they moved it to Hammond. They moved it a little further west. So what does that mean? I will tell you exactly. We're going to look at that here. This is all very interesting. I'm not sure here if the red is the radars that are down or what. Half of the radars are down. You know, that bridge collapse, that bridge didn't collapse on its own, and power doesn't just, we never had power just flicker on and off before, causing mass damage. But now all of a sudden we have AT&T went down. All the AT&T towers in the country went down for a day. Now that just one boat's power flickered off and on. There were warnings beforehand. It was a Ukrainian pilot, river captain, and now we have like half of the radars down. They are testing the systems before they pull out the shit show. Okay, excuse my French, but if that's offensive, you're not gonna like what's coming. All right, they are priming. They're priming an EMP. They're testing out the grid before they FFS on that. FS is a false. I'm not gonna say what else because AI, but you know, psyops help shape the minds of people. Unfortunately, the naive and those who haven't realized that the trust has been broken are putting themselves and the rest of us in harm's way. The trust has been broken. We need to repair the trust before we continue. When someone cheats on you, you don't continue a relationship until you repair the trust, right? You have to work on that. Otherwise, whatever you build on top of that is on faulty foundation. But I digress. So let's check out these. This was the archive for April 16th. Oh, this is April 16th, April 15th to April 16th. So half the radars were down. It looks like all these are working on the west coast, on the east coast. They're all popping off. So, I mean, maybe there's a few less than normal. I don't know. Just because you don't see them popping off doesn't mean they're not there. It just means they're not in high pressure mode. Because when that blue, when that blue is strong on the screen, that's them energizing. That energizes the air. That's all energized. Ain't nothing over here. What's up with all the Dopplers over here? The California's Dopplers. So they're creating, what they're creating is a high pressure area on the East Coast. And on the West Coast, there's a high pressure area. But look, the Midwest is completely open. So they are preventing, in the next day here, rain from coming. They are pumping the clouds out. See these clouds up here that are coming over the area, as that blooms, those clouds raise up and evaporate or go up above the bloom of the blue, which creates a high pressure area through its energizing of the space. Okay, and then these are not the most technical terms. I don't have all of their patents, but this is observation. Science is observation based, and history has been recorded. I've cracked the code. I've predicted the landfall of hurricanes because I understand how they steer them into these radars and use the radars to repel them out of the areas they don't want, and they pull them into the areas they do want. So there's going to be a storm. I said there's going to be a storm in the Midwest.
Severe thunderstorms, tornadoes, and even hail are expected to sweep through parts of the Midwest. According to the National Weather Service, the storms are forecast to hit Oklahoma and Kansas before making their way across the southern and central Great Plains. CBS News national correspondent Dave Malkoff joins us from inside the National Weather Service in Wichita, Kansas. Dave, how threatening are these storms, and what areas, although we just named them, what areas are most at risk?
Well, John, we were looking at maps and we were talking to the experts today, trying to figure out where those areas would be. Where is the main threat for tonight? That's what brought us here to Wichita, Kansas. On top of the roof of this building is a 750,000 watt weather radar. You can actually see it if you look at the Post-it note that I put up there. That's pointing to that little black dot. You can see where the weather radar is popping right now in northern Texas. We've got some areas out west of us that will start having a threat sometime in the next couple hours.
And I recorded parts of the storm, and I will be putting it out after this video. So look for it. And on top of that, we recently had a radar move. Our local radar, KLIX WSR 88D, that rolled out in 1988. It was in Slidell, and now it's moved to Hammond, just a little bit west of the Orleans area. This was done to take care of a gap in radar, which I can attest that there is a gap. I've always noticed that gap. That was interesting. So it just moving it a little bit less, so then there won't be a gap in the overlap. And also interesting, there's a little capture here. A little thing that most people don't know is that Doppler gets taken out or damaged very often because it creates wind. And that wind will go into it at times and actually hurt it. So that happened after Katrina. I don't have any proof of these things. These are things I have heard from military personnel. I just took their word for it. KLIX was down then. the Houston radar after Harvey had damage. They put it back up and used it again. They keep using the same one. KLIX had damage. Maria's radar in the Caribbean, was it Puerto Rico? That was taken down because they energize the air, and then when they release the energy, there's a vacuum, and it brings wind triangulating over the radar. Now, if they're going to be bringing a hurricane into it by feeding the path of a storm system and leading it into it, then sure, of course it's got to take damage. It's taking a hit. And speaking of hurricanes, right here, okay, so this is the Hammond one. It moved over from Slidell, just a few miles west from where it was before. It's pretty active. It's relatively, well, no, I mean, they're charging it up. That's a big bloom. That breaks the clouds up, makes them go up or breaks them up. But prevents them from staying intact in that zone. It actually lifts the clouds up when it's all blue like that. And you know that they're creating a high pressure area where they don't want the wind to go through. So when you have, okay, the United States, and if you have half of the United States is got the blooms on, and then the West Coast in California has the blooms on, but the Midwest has no blooms. You can see it right now. You can see all this blue here, right around the radars. Look, around the dots, there's blue. That's because they're energized. Where there's blue is the energization. You got me? You feel me? And then look at these have very little. This is allowing, so there's the whole Midwest is allowing weather to form there, and California is blocking the rain. Midwest is blocking, East Coast and Central is blocking the rain, but the Midwest is letting it in. Of course, they're going to have some storms. Of course. But if they were to pulse those radars, they could stop the storms altogether. And in fact, when the Midwest drought started in 92, something like that, I got to look at my notes again, but that was the end of the rollout of the Doppler radar. 88 to 92 were the years that they rolled out that last phase of the Doppler radar. It was 57, 74, and then 88 to 92 was the next rollout. That was the third wave. Now they've got different modifications they've done to it, dual polarization. They keep improving on the bells and whistles. But the apparatus is basically the same. It's pretty much the same. Either they put it on more steroids or not, and you get more control. Look, guys, every drill they make is about them consolidating power and putting in new technology. Every drill they make. I just found out that the May flood of 1995 was a drill that went live.
Good afternoon. My name is Freddie Ziegler. I'm here at the National Weather Service with Frank Rivette, the warning coordinating meteorologist at the office, at the weather forecast office for New Orleans and Baton Rouge. And we're going to talk about the flood of 1995. And what do you remember about the flood of 1995, Frank?
Well, it was certainly a very impressive event, multi-day event. It happened over 2 nights, evening of the May 8th and then again on the evening of May 9th of 1995. So it was a 2-day event, 2 distinct rain bands, one across Metro New Orleans, South Shore, and a little bit of the North Shore the first night, then mainly across the North Shore, Mississippi counties the second night. I think a couple of things I do remember about this particular event, beyond the just the severity and the intense rainfall rates and the severe weather associated with it. I was involved in a hurricane exercise with with the emergency management community across southeast Louisiana. Even state offices were involved in a kind of a multi-day hurricane preparedness exercise simulating a landfalling hurricane. And as we were doing this exercise, a squall line came down from the Texas area, installed over our area, and caused some of this very heavy rainfall. So we had to transition from being in this hurricane exercise into a real live event during that first evening that affected the South Shore areas and some parts of the Slidell area.
And so the map we have behind you, what is it? What's going on in the map?
The map behind us is a recent update that Scott Lincoln at the River Forecast Center reanalyzed some of the data. We had written a paper 20 years ago on this event, but he reanalyzed some of the rainfall data using some better radar data correlations due to rainfall. And that map summarizes the 2-day rainfall event, about 50 hours worth of rainfall, based on both the radar and actual reports, ground truth reports. There was a tremendous swath of heavy rainfall across Metro New Orleans, South Shore area, and in addition to St. Tammany Parish, into Pearl River, Hancock counties, and southern Mississippi.
How were you affected personally getting to work?
I was working that day, Monday, during the day shift, working on primarily the hurricane exercise we were undergoing. And as this system moved in, the severity of it got more and more apparent. We had to drop out of the exercise and go into real warnings, severe thunderstorm, tornado, and flash flood warnings. And I basically worked overnight that night. I didn't leave the office until about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And many people from New Orleans know there was a May flood. It was pretty bad. I remember wading through water. And that was a drill. And we know about drills that go live. I don't want to talk too much about it with my trigger words, but yeah. So what's another thing that could have happened here? Let's look at when they moved KLIX to the Hammond. So it's got another call sign. I haven't committed. Is it HMD or I don't know, H something, KH something. When we had it in Slidell, think about this. If they pulled it straight up, pulled a hurricane straight up into it, they would get the eye going straight up into it. Versus, unless they brought it in at a side. But they'll never, and the eye is not the strongest part of the storm. Actually, the path of the eye is not. It's to the east of the eye where all the rain dumps. It picks up and dumps. And then the west side is the dry side. So if they're moving this further, and legitimately it needed to be moved, right? There was a radar gap, and that's true. I'm not questioning them on that. But now that they've moved it, right, a little to the west of the Mississippi River, right? Now if they pull a hurricane up, the east side is going to land in New Orleans and go up the Mississippi River. Now we're going to have the worst part of the storm going up the river, and now we're done with New Orleans, okay? Now it's over. I'm just saying, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen. I'm just saying this is what could happen. Now that they've moved it over, they can move the worst part of hurricanes up the Mississippi River. Let's hope they don't. And don't worry, I'm not giving them any bright ideas they haven't thought of. They can do what they want to. They've already thought of way more things than I have. They're way more organized and brilliant than me, but albeit not wise. Not wiser, just maybe a little bit smarter. And there's one more thing on that I would like to show you. This was a comment on the video of KLIX moving. All right, this was thanks. Is there an exact date for the radar will be online? I look forward to the radar to be operational. Okay, and then the next one is, what is the max MPH wind tolerance of the tower? Very interesting. What is the max miles per hour wind tolerance of the tower? They didn't answer, but it's interesting. Are they it does need a wind tolerance, right? It needs to be able to tolerate the wind that it creates. So that's an interesting question, and the answer is going to be even more interesting. Did they fortify it, or did they why is this person asking that? Is that just because it's been taken out a few times and he knows this? I'm just curious. Maybe I'll ask him the question. But then he's going to see my channel. I'm trying to be low-key here with the Weather Service, National Weather Service. I don't want to be on their radar, but I probably am. I have questioned the American Meteorological Society Conference and NOAA about the radars and why the storms would keep favoring going into them. And they didn't have a good answer. They said, well, because there's so many radars. I'm like, there's not that many. It's like saying, oh, there's so many holes on a pool table that if you're going to throw your balls around, they're going to get into the holes. Well, maybe eventually, but not every single time, right? There's a lot of holes on a pool table. Same thing. There's just as many Doppler radars as there are holes on a pool table. Doesn't mean you're going to get them in. Doesn't mean you're going to have a direct connection with one of those holes. Assuming that Doppler radar is a hole, right? And the ball is a hurricane. You're not going to get your balls in just because you've got some holes. I mean, maybe eventually, but not every time. So what I've documented, besides triangulating on the radar through various means, is a statistical impossibility. So yeah, how much wind tolerance do these towers have? Great question. Anyways, look, information is shock resistance, and you want to be prepared. Don't know what tomorrow brings, but do your best. Be good to each other. Spread the truth. Be bold in the truth, and buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride, guys. But we got this, all right? We got this. All right. Love y'all. God bless, and blessed be.